In today's video, I'm going to give you a few tips into how I produce a half lap joint at the table saw and hand fitting it to produce a nice strong joint to join two pieces of wood. Now for this joint, it's just like any other type of joinery you do. You need to lay it out. Laying it out reduces your risk of actually messing it up, and it also tells you which side you actually need to cut. So what I first did was found the center of the board, because that's where this joint's going to go. And then from the center, I went 3/8 out on both sides, because these two boards are 3/4 of an inch. So that'll give me the thickness here. Next, what I did was found half the width. This case is 1.5 inches because these boards are 3 inches. Mark that. Once you mark the 1.5 inch mark here, and then you need to pick which board's going to be cut at the bottom and which board's going to be cut at the top. Sometimes it doesn't even matter if you haven't done the other joinery in your piece yet. I haven't done the technical joinery of this yet, but this is how I want the boards to sit in my piece. So I went in and marked out the bottom and the top. Now once you've got it laid out, all I like to do is take the board with my pencil mark on it, set it right next to the blade, and get my height of it. I like it to be just slightly under for this first time, and you always can come back and just slightly touch it up by hand, or you can do it with the table saw also. So after you got the height of the blade set to where you need to be, I like to just take the board and line it right up with my clearance line right there. Take a scrap piece of block that I know is square on one edge, and I'll bump it off right next to it, making sure it didn't move. Clamp it and hold it down. Check it, make sure it didn't move, and everything's fine. So once I have this block into place, I like to just start making my cuts going through. I won't go all the way to the line. I'll start out probably a heavy 30-second away from the line, and I'll start testing the fit on both pieces to see how well they fit over each other. This way you're ensuring you're getting a nice tight fit of the piece itself. Alright, so I got both pieces roughed out. Now I'm going to start testing the fit. This is where it really pays just to take your time and slowly sneak up on it. I'm going to start with one piece and then go to the other piece afterwards. So this first piece, it still needs to go probably a good 30 seconds or so to be able to make it fit. So I'll stay with this piece, reline it back up, and just keep making slight little adjustments to make sure it fits. So after just slightly moving the board over, I'll keep constantly testing it and make sure I don't go too far, but I'm getting a lot closer. So as of right now, I can just get the board started on there, which is exactly where I want to leave it. I prefer to get the last little bit here, work it just a little bit loose by hand. That'll lead to a really good fit. So now that I got this board good, I'm going to move to my other board. Once I get this one a little closer, we'll move over to the bench and I'll show you how I get it tight from there. Now that I have both of these pieces fitting tight, I like to work them the rest of the way by hand. Because if you have this joint too tight going together, it will easily snap along through the grain direction. Now you need it just a little bit loose. I mean just a little bit loose for glue. If you have it extremely tight when you're gluing, by the time you're trying to tap that down with glue, it will most likely split. So my personal preference into working this just a little bit smaller is with a card scraper. You can do it with a hand plane as well. I just prefer card scraper. And I'll just take a handful of light passes at it, at each one. And then once I get each one of these cleaned up on both sides, I'll come back and start working to see which one needs a little bit more take it off for it to fit. So one way you can test it without putting it together and just marring up the piece of wood, I like to take it on back side of it, and you can see right now they're still just a little too snug. So I'll take this board and still keep working both sides of it just a little bit more. So one of the main reasons why I like fitting it this way is because you can take the wood itself and you'll start to mar it. You can hear it squeaking, and you can tell it's still too tight. So you can see right here, that's where it was marring the wood. It didn't damage it, it's just marking it just a little bit. Just right there. That still tells me I can be a little bit more aggressive and remove more material. It's on both sides of it. So now after just lightly hitting this with a card scraper, I can finally start actually seeing how well it actually fits. And you can tell right now I'm getting a decent ways down into there. I'm not going to go any farther than that. You can start hearing it bottoming out. So just like before, now you know how far you can make it. I like to come back and just start working those areas. More than likely you're going to have rub marks on the board itself showing you exactly where you need to hit it to help remove material to work it down the rest of the way. Now that I have the pieces roughed together, you can see just how close I was to being on to center. That's no more than just about 32nd off, which is fine. I'm going to go back and just slightly chisel that away. It's better to be a little bit off the first attempt than being too far over. It's easier to remove the material than it is to add it back. So I'll take this apart. So all I'm going to start just removing is just a little bit of saw marks itself. Those are probably just what's keeping me up just the tiniest bit. And then if I need to remove more material afterwards, I can easily remove just that little bit. Now make sure you're not going all the way through. If you're going all the way through, you're very likely to tear out on the other side. Always work towards the center. That way you don't have any blowout and you don't have to fix another problem. So I've just cleaned up this one edge here. I'm going to test fit it and see if I need to remove any off this side or not. More than likely I've removed just enough material alone off of this one to get them set nice and flush. Now if you've done this joinery correct, you should be able to drop it in most of the way like that and then apply a good amount of pressure with your hands to get it to go in the rest of the way. Now that I've just, after checking it, everything is nice and flush. Just took that little bit of material to get it flush. Now, the main reason why you want your joinery to be fitting like this is when you go back to glue this up, the glue is going to add a lot of friction. And if you're sitting there having to beat it together and just hammering it, more than likely you're going to split it somewhere along the joint at one of the tops or the bottoms of it, right along through there. So that's why I like to have it just where I can press it in together by hand. And you should be able to tell right here that all the joinery is fitting nice and tight. Around all the edges. That's the way it should look. And just like that, you have a simple and efficient way of doing a half lap joint on the table saw with just a little bit of handwork. Now there are multiple ways you can actually do a half lap. You can do it at the bandsaw. You can do it on the table saw with a dado. And this is just my preferred way. It works the fastest for me. In actuality, without filming it, I can do it probably about 5 to 10 minutes. And that's fast enough for me to where I'm still making money and being able to do a strong, sturdy piece of joinery. Now what this is for a base. I will attach some legs to it, and it'll look something like this later on. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any further questions, leave a comment down below. I'll be happy to answer. Thanks.